Hello, and welcome in episode number 6 of the Trevor and Sean Sports Podcast. Trevor Mater and Sean Nino joining you. Normally we join you on a Monday, but this week wanted to mix stuff up a little bit, going with the Tuesday because we wanted to have a chance to recap the national championship game instead of talk about it. As I said, I'm joined by Sean Nino. Sean, I think after that game last night, maybe we should have just previewed it. We'd have been a lot better off, don't you think?
Yeah, it was a very rough game. And you and I quickly talked about it before we went on this podcast that the first half was watchable. You know, you could actually enjoy the first half. You know, it wasn't marred by anything. And then the start of the second half happened, and it was like, oh, so this is how it's going to be. We're just going to have a foul fest, and teams can't shoot. And when those two things come together, you get a magical, wonderful game called awful.
Yeah, that was pretty atrocious. I think I would have rather seen a 20 or 25 point blowout where at least one team was playing really good than what we saw last night. If you were lucky enough to not watch the national championship game last night, it was actually, you missed out on a pretty good first half. Gonzaga led 35-32. After one half, the game had a flow to it. I mean, they were going back and forth. Gonzaga would get up by 7. Carolina would get back and tie it or take the lead. Gonzaga would find some momentum and retake the lead. And then you come out for the second half, and, I mean, the referees got whistle happy. Both teams they looked sluggish. I mean, you can complain about the refs all you want. There were some bad calls. I think they were consistent, though. I mean, they were consistently bad, but they were consistent. That still didn't excuse the awful, awful shooting by both teams, and particularly North Carolina. I mean, it was just a really, really difficult game to watch in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was really difficult to see because I pointed out that North Carolina just needed to stop shooting the three ball the way they were because they were, they couldn't get offense going. And with like 20 seconds left on the shot clock, they're like, well, I guess I'm going to shoot a three, and then it doesn't hit the rim, and then it's Gonzaga's ball. Like, I don't understand how someone on that team wasn't like, maybe we should just stop trying to shoot threes, maybe get some offense going. Because, for about 45 minutes, they just really couldn't do anything.
Yeah, they had some terrible shot selection at some points during the game. North Carolina was 4 of 27 from beyond the arc, and actually Joel Berry, who ended up being the most outstanding player, was 4 of 13. Everybody else was 0 of 14. Justin Jackson, a guy that many Tar Heel fans say should have been National Player of the Year, he was 0 for 9 from beyond the arc and 6 of 19 with 16 points. Those are, he wasn't, I guess, bad overall shooting. When you're 0 of 9 from 3, it's kind of hard to make an argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, he did have the 16 points, but how many of those were from the free throw line?
He was 4 of 5. Barry was 4 of 8. North Carolina, they were atrocious all the way around. I've never seen a team play a worse game and win than, North Carolina in the Final Four really didn't play a good game either way. If Kennedy Meeks doesn't go off in the Final Four, I don't think they get there. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the national championship game, you shoot 26 of 73 from just, anywhere on the court, 4 of 27 from 3, and 15 of 26 from the line. That's pretty bad. Gonzaga, though, wasn't a ton better. They were 20 of 59 from the field, 8 of 19 from 3, which is about 42%, which is a lot better than North Carolina shot, and 17 of 26 from the free throw line. It was a very sluggish game to watch, and I found myself watching the second half just waiting for it to be over, not even really caring who won. It was ugly. It was bad. I think it was worse than we talked about this last night. I think it was worse than the UConn Butler game from a couple of years back.
Yeah, this game is only worse in my mind because I didn't fully watch the Butler UConn game because I sat down from beginning to end, watched this game, and because I didn't do that for the 2011 national championship, this one just stays right on the top of my mind. It's just bad. I think the last 7-ish minutes of the game were somewhat watchable just because the refs seemed to either allow.
Well, I think they realized everyone had like 4 fouls, and if they kept it up, we weren't going to be able to finish the game.
Yeah, that's true as well. I mean, you guys have there are guys on the bench, you know.
Yeah, but it was bad. There was a point in the game where I think Gonzaga went like 7 minutes without a field goal, or 5.5 minutes, or it was a while. Gonzaga, they just kept shooting themselves in the foot last night. 14 turnovers to North Carolina's 4. It's hard to win a lot of games that way. Their bigs got in foul trouble. Zemek Karnowski and Zach Collins, who I think was probably the best player on the court last night. He actually, when he was on the court, didn't have a bad game. He was 4 or 6. The only problem was he got himself in foul trouble, and you know that kind of relegates how much he can be involved. And then he ended up fouling out with 7 minutes to go or 5 minutes. It was still there was still quite a bit of time left when he found out. And Zemek Karnowski, I thought, was one of the best bigs in college basketball, and he was atrocious last night. It was almost kind of sad to see.
Yeah, he had probably 5 or 6 shots that were at the rim that he just couldn't get down. And if you're supposed to be one of the best big men in the country, you know, you expect those to go down. And I think he hadn't really seen the same type of size that North Carolina had. And, you know, if you're always bigger or, you know, just taller than the guys you're playing, you know, you don't have to think about how am I going to shoot over this guy, or, you know, like what other types of moves that you're going to have to pull off to try and get the shot. Because, you know, I mean, if you're 7 feet tall and you could just dunk over a guy that's 6'7", easy. But if he's around 6'10" and even 6'11", you know, you might not be able to get that same chance at the rim. And so, you know, I think once those shots started to not go in, he kind of doubted himself because he hadn't really been in that, you know, place before.
Yeah, I thought Meeks did a decent job of defending him. Another problem that I thought Gonzaga had, and maybe the difference in the game, was Josh Perkins. The first part of the game, he had 13 points in the first half. You know, he's a guy that normally comes off the bench. Hadn't played well the whole tournament. Comes out on fire in the first half. And then he didn't make a single shot in the second half. All 13 of his points came in the first half. They did a decent job containing Nigel Williams-Goss in the second half too. And it was just so sloppy and so sluggish. And I think maybe the fouls probably didn't help, but I mean, we could sit here and complain about the refs till we were blue in the face, but the refs didn't win North Carolina the game or lose Gonzaga the game. They were just bad.
Yeah, the only one that I think Gonzaga can truly gripe about is in the final minutes when Kennedy Meeks and Karnowski were on the ground battling for the ball. Meeks' hand was clearly out of bounds, and that's the only one that even, you know, pops up in my mind because they were only down 1 at that point.
And there was another where I think it was one of Collins' third or fourth foul that looked like he went straight up. But then, I mean, there were some flip ones the other way with North Carolina. The one that really sticks out in my mind is when, I can't think of who it was, threw up the 3 from Williams-Goss for Gonzaga, and it looked like Barry got a hand on it, or didn't get a hand on it, but disrupted the shot enough to where it airballed out, and they called it North Carolina ball, and then they reversed it and called it Gonzaga ball. But the flip side of that is, I think that was actually probably a foul. I mean, as many fouls they'd called all night, and then they didn't call one. That was kind of surprising. They need a flagrant against Zemek Karnowski. That one to me was tricky because I don't think it was intentional.
No, I don't think he meant to do that.
You know, and there wasn't, and I can't remember who it was they called the foul. Was it Pinson? I think it was Pinson.
I thought it was on Barry that he had.
Someone they went down right after. I think it was Theo Pinson, but it could have been Joel Barry. I don't remember. Either way, it wasn't. It shouldn't have been a foul on Pinson, and it shouldn't have been a flagrant on Karnowski. Mm-hmm. If you want to call the foul on Karnowski for that, that's fine. But then it could have totally changed the landscape, and it didn't because they missed both free throws because North Carolina was awful from the free throw line last night, and they got the ball back, and I don't even think they scored getting the ball back. But it was a sloppy game. I mean, you look at the year in sports that we've been spoiled to, and they alluded to that in their pregame intro to it on CBS. and it was awful. I mean, in the last year, we had a buzzer-beater national championship game last year where Villanova beat North Carolina. We had a 7-game NBA Finals where a team that had never won it before won it. We had a thrilling 7-game World Series where the Cubs snapped a 108-year drought. We had an awesome college football playoff national championship game that came down to the last minute, or last second, really. And then an overtime Super Bowl after New England trailed 28-3. And then we cap off that perfect year of championships with that garbage.
Yeah, there's not really a way that game could have been saved, and the championship game could have been saved and make it to be like, oh yeah, this was a great game. No, there's no way that it could have been good at this point. You know, I mean, I'm not glad that North Carolina won, but I mean, congrats to them that they did go out and win it.
I mean, congrats to them. There had to be a winner last night. I mean, somebody had to win, and it happened to be North Carolina, and they did what I guess they needed to do to win it. I don't know that. I mean, they were outshot, basically. I mean, they were 36% from the field. Gonzaga was 34, okay? Gonzaga was 42 from 3. They were 15. Gonzaga 65 from the free throw line, North Carolina 58. But where the difference fell was the turnovers. You know, North Carolina had the turnover margin. Also, they did a better job rebounding in the second half. They were out rebounding at one point like 21-12 in the first half. Gonzaga only ended up out rebounding them 49-37. They had 15 offensive rebounds for the Tar Heels. So hats off to them. It was a good season for them, and it is good to see them redeem themselves after coming so close to winning it last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big story that you can pull out of this, you know, that they did, pick up the win after last year's loss. You know, I think it's a bad way to end this, like, sports year, and even just
the tournament itself was pretty awesome.
You know, well, you know, there were parts, we've talked about this before, how, like, the Thursday, Friday were not very exciting.
They were like, good games, though. Like, to me, as a casual sports fan, or I guess not your casual sports fan, I'm going to watch March Madness if they're all 50-point blowouts. But to me, there were really, those Thursday, Friday games, yeah, there were no upsets, but you're telling me Michigan, Oklahoma State wasn't fun? I mean, the Iowa State-Nevada game was fun. Notre Dame-Princeton was fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, basically every game that Florida State, Florida Gulf Coast was one of my favorite games in the tournament. I mean, so there were fun games and good games. And then you got on to the round of 32, and there were some really good games. The Sweet 16, I mean, you had the Wisconsin-Florida one. Before that, you had the Villanova-Wisconsin one in the round of 32. The Elite Eight, you had some good ones. There were some really fun games in the tournament, and it's sad that we see it end like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really another way to put it. Who does Gonzaga lose off of this year's team?
Let me look at that real quick. I'm certain Karnowski's a senior.
I don't know. I heard he was a junior.
I swear he's been there for like 50 years. He's gotta be. He's like the Perry Ellis
of Gonzaga.
Okay, they lose out of this class Jordan Matthews, who's a transfer from Cal. Rem Bakumis, who obviously didn't play last night because I've never heard of him, and Shemek Karnowski. So, assuming they return a lot, and who knows, I mean, Zach Collins is only a freshman. He'll be a more of an integral piece next year. This could be a team that could be really good again next year if Jonathan Williams returns Jonathan Williams and Nigel Williams-Goss and Zach Collins, and even Killian Tilly had some solid minutes last night. Silas Melson, Josh Perkins. They could be a good team next year. I firmly believe it. And North Carolina, they lost quite a bunch too, didn't they? I know Jackson's a senior, I believe. Am I right? I'm going to pull that up real quick. They lose from this class Nate Britt, Kennedy Meeks, Isaiah Hicks, Candler Coker. I'm going to guess, on the bench. Stillman White. Justin Jackson is only a junior.
I mean, he could come back, but at this point,
yeah,
I would honestly leave on this high note because, side note, the champion hasn't gone on past the round of 32 since Florida won back-to-back championships.
Didn't Kansas make it to the Sweet 16?
Nope.
The year after they won it all?
Nope. Or maybe it's they haven't made it past the Sweet 16.
Let's look at that. 'Cause Duke made it to the Sweet 16 last year after they won it all. UConn didn't even make the tournament the year after they won it all. Louisville made it to the Sweet 16 after they won it all. Then you'd have to go back to 2013. That would have been Kentucky. They didn't even make the tournament. 2012, UConn got beat in the first round by Iowa State. 2011, that would have been Duke. They got beat in the Sweet 16 by Arizona. Florida didn't make the tournament the second time after they won it all. So you go back 2010, that would have been North Carolina. They didn't even make the tournament. They won the NIT that year. 2009 would have been Kansas, and they lost in a Sweet 16 to Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
And 2008, Florida didn't make the tournament, and the year before, Florida had so, yeah, I mean, wow.
So the defending champion hasn't gotten past the Sweet 16, and, you know, I just think that they've kind of had their time, and, you know, if you're, like, why would you try to come back? You know, like, you've done all that you can, and it's so hard to win anyway because everything has to fall right. I mean, I think Gonzaga had one of the easiest paths in the actual tournament. You know, they played a good out-of-conference schedule anyway, but while they were in the, you know, in the big dance, you know, they did get the easiest path, you know, out of the two teams, but I mean, on the other side of it, they did win the games that they were supposed to, and that's pretty much all.
And North Carolina had some scares in the tournament. I mean, they were down by 5 to Arkansas with about 2.5 minutes to go, and they went on a run there. They were down 5 at one point against Kentucky. Butler, they were in control most of that game, and then the Oregon game, I mean, they tried to lose that one, and they just couldn't. So yeah, I mean, not the way you maybe want to end the season, but it was a good tournament. It was a good season. Championship game, not so much. But transitioning over now, I'm sure if you watched the game last night, you saw that it was on CBS. Big news coming out of CBS Sports today, or we can assume it's going to be big news for CBS Sports. The Dallas Cowboys have announced that Tony Romo will officially retire from the NFL, and he is slated to join CBS as their number one color guy, replacing Phil Simms. Sean, what do you think of that?
I mean, it kind of came out of the blue. Kind of. I mean, I think he could have gone to Houston, maybe Denver, and gotten out of one good year, and then possibly went to the Super Bowl. You know, maybe he knows more than we've been let on, and he still has a injury or something. But I guess to get to your point of him going to CBS, taking over for Phil Simms.
Yep,
I mean,
and it just went on Twitter at 2:00 of Tony Romo in a CBS suit, saying it's official #CBS. So, yeah, I don't know what they'll do with Phil Simms, but anyways, carry on.
I mean, Phil Simms is, out of the major sports broadcasting companies, probably the worst main color guy that they have. And, you know, I don't know what he's going to do after this. Maybe he goes to a desk job, you know, working one of the many NFL shows that there are.
And you got to think, too, with CBS, even, I believe Tony Gonzalez announced earlier this week that he was leaving the NFL on CBS.
Correct.
So, I mean, you know, you could put Phil Simms there, and I would immediately switch to Fox.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you know, and we can, I guess, just go through and rank these guys. But you look at the color guys in the NFL right now. Who would you say is the best and the worst?
Probably Chris Collinsworth. I think
Collinsworth's the best.
And worst, probably Aikman, but that's because I don't know enough about Romo as of right now for a broadcaster to be able to be like, oh, he's good or bad, because he hasn't done it.
And that's the problem I have with them throwing Romo into the number one slot is we don't know if the guy is going to be good at it at all. He seems like a very energetic guy and smart guy, but we don't know. I mean, he could absolutely suck, or he could be really, really good. I mean, one of my favorites before he left to take over as GM for the 49ers was John Lynch. I thought John Lynch was very good. He was energetic, he was clever, but he was also intelligent. I thoroughly enjoyed John Gruden. Gruden kind of wears on me a little bit sometimes, though, not going to lie. Yeah, I love Chris Collinsworth. Chris Collinsworth's goofy, because he's from Kentucky, and he's just kind of got that howdy-doody twang to him. But he's really intellectual, and he's really intelligent about the game, and the one I remember is watching and you were at this game, watching the Chiefs-Raiders game earlier this year where Tyreek Hill, he returned it back, the punt returned back, and then it got called back, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And he pointed out in the air, you watch out here because Oakland's special team's going to be tired from already chasing him once, and sure enough, Tyreek Hill gets punt return, and they were gassed, and they couldn't catch him, so, just insight like that. I like Rondé Barber. Outside of that, man, there's some slim pickings. I mean, some of them are pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. And I just have a kind of like a funny side note. What are they going to do when Tony gets like a deal in like August to sign with the team?
I was wondering that too because I just read a thing that Adam Schefter had on here about the retirement and basically that one NFL executive said that Romo is their number one guy on their list. And, I wonder that, what is CBS going to do if in, October, Derek Carr goes down again, or not, maybe not even Derek Carr, but Matt Ryan or Cam Newton or some Super Bowl contender team, their starting quarterback goes down, and Tony Romo's getting phone calls left and right to go play. And I think maybe Tony realizes now that he's at the point in his career that I've done probably all I can do. I can go and chase a championship, but back injuries are not something to mess with. And maybe he realizes that I can walk away now while I have my health, and I can walk away, and I have a really good gig lined up for me. I mean, because not everybody goes from playing in the NFL to the number one guy at one of the biggest television networks in the country. So, I mean, I think maybe it's just his wherewithal to realize that it's over. That was a stage in his life. Or maybe the market out there for him wasn't as good as he thought it was. Maybe, it sounded like Denver and Houston were kind of toying with the interest of him, and maybe he didn't want to be the backup guy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, a thing that I'm questioning. Like, you're going to get paid millions of dollars to be a backup quarterback, and instead you go and choose to be a broadcaster,
Don't confuse yourself. I'm sure what Tony Romo is going to be making at CBS is still going to be good.
Well, obviously, you're not going to, they're going to have to give him a deal that's, it's not going to be an NFL contract, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be big enough that he's like, you know what? I think I can, take this hit for my paycheck and, be able to broadcast games. It's,
I'm sure Tony Romo seems like a pretty bright guy. I'm sure he's pretty financially set for probably the rest of his life, no problem. And I don't know what CBS will pay him, but I know Jim Nantz makes $7 million a year. Granted, Jim Nantz does a ton, but it sounds like Romo might also be a part of their golf coverage.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting because he's probably one of the best golfers who's not a professional golfer that we've seen. Because I know the Pro-Am that he plays in pretty much every single year. He's close to being able to get the invite to, I think the Masters is what it goes into, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're not just going to have him in there for August until the Super Bowl, but I don't know. That's just an interesting thought.
Yeah, they will. Fun fact: his deal with CBS, he'll be teamed up with Jim Nantz. That'll be interesting because I've always liked Jim Nantz a lot as a play-by-play guy. Maybe not so much for football, but I do basketball, and I'll be interested to see how that works with him lined up with Jim Nantz. CBS has the Super Bowl rights for not this year, but the next Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta, and guess who plays on CBS on Thanksgiving this year?
The Dallas
Cowboys.
Huh.
Can you imagine
That's kind of interesting because
Can you imagine a Wednesday, or I don't know when they do their production meetings, probably Wednesday. Can you imagine a Wednesday afternoon production meeting with when Tony Romo sits down with Jason Garrett and Dak Prescott?
That would be.
I mean, you
interesting.
thought eating Thanksgiving dinner with your family was awkward enough already. Can you imagine that?
I mean, I think he's come to terms with that at this point because, he's not going to be the starting guy there, and with all the injuries that happened, I think he's going to go into it in a very professional manner, except for the fact that he actually knows these guys. So he might be able to pull, some things out of there, like maybe get more answers out of them than you could get if, say, you were just like you or me going up to them being, having to ask them questions.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think Romo's a pretty bright guy. I don't know Tony Romo, excuse me, but I do think he is a pretty bright guy, and who knows, he might bring, an energy and enthusiasm to the booth that is kind of dying nowadays, because maybe that's my biggest problem with a guy like Phil Simms or Troy Aikman is they're just so awful to listen to, and they're never up, they're never down, and it's, and a lot of people always love John Madden. Let's be honest, John Madden was not a good color guy. John Madden was there to be entertaining. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe Tony Romo could provide both. I mean, there's a lot of guys I'd love to see in a broadcast booth. Rex Ryan has a deal with ESPN now to be part of their studio show. Can you imagine that guy doing color commentary?
That'd be crazy. I think he's like too out of it to be able to do it. I think he's good for the, NFL shows, but being able to do color and play-by-play is a lot different than just being able to talk about sports. You have to know the ins and outs of it, and maybe he could do it, but he just doesn't at first glance strike me as that guy.
You thought Bill Walton was bad. Could you imagine that?
Yeah, but Bill, I don't know. He's very out there, and while being one of the best basketball players, at broadcasting, I think he's there because of his name and not at all because of what he says on the broadcast.
Why? I mean, look at the same. You could say that with any of them. Troy Aikman, Phil Simms. You could say that with literally any of those guys, that they're only there for their name. I mean, because that's kind of, Troy Aikman kind of got his gig that he has now in the same way that Tony Romo did. And when Troy Aikman first started at Fox, he was with Chris Collinsworth and Joe Buck in the booth, and that didn't work out. Chris Collinsworth left. Like I said, I always thought Chris Collinsworth was a lot better than Joe Buck, and a lot of people are Joe Buck haters. I'm not a Joe Buck hater. I mean, Joe Buck he's really good with baseball. I think it's just Troy Aikman that makes us not like Joe Buck.
No, I think as Kansas City fans, what makes us hate Joe Buck is Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah, but you got to look at it from Joe Buck's perspective, though, too. I mean, what Madison Bumgarner did, you can argue will never be done in a World Series again. I mean, that guy was, automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, and I'm going to probably upset some people, I think some of that is just Royal fans kind of being sour and bitter about it. If you want to be bitter towards Madison Bumgarner and the Giants, I'll be right there with you. But Joe Buck was just doing his job. I mean, if he was talking about Jeremy Guthrie or James Shields or Yordano Ventura after that World Series, no one would care. So I've always liked Joe Buck. I've always liked Al Michaels. I've always liked Phil Simms or Jim Nantz. Not Phil Simms. Not Phil Simms. So that'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how that one will work out.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it works out. I hope it's not a bad deal for him, and that he's not actually good at broadcasting the games. Because I think at first it's going to be like a thing where people are just going to come because it's Tony, and I hope he can bring in those fans and they'll stay there because he's a good broadcaster.
Let's hope so. Sean, are you about ready to talk some baseball?
I've been ready since last week, actually, just because once Kansas got knocked out of the tournament, I was really like, baseball season, because that's the only thing I can look forward to right now.
Do you got your predictions ready?
No, Trevor. I'm just gonna
Come on.
No. See, well, okay, kind of. You're gonna be like, oh, tell me who's gonna win this division. I'm gonna give you a team, and am I gonna be able to back up that reasoning? Not very well, but I'm gonna try.
Who's gonna be AL Rookie of the Year?
I can't. I don't even know who the rookies are, Trevor.
Well, you better get to Googling then, because we're gonna do our full-on
Jesus
Major League Baseball prediction. So, yeah, I'm excited. Baseball season. The Royals, they I don't think they got the memo that baseball season started yesterday.
No, I think Duffy did, and he was like, okay, cool, we're ready for the season. I don't think the bullpen or the offense knew that they were playing yesterday.
Yeah. So what we'll do, Sean, to make it easier for you, is we'll go through all the division winners.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll pick our wild cards, and then we'll pick our playoffs, and then we'll come back and get the awards at the end.
Okay.
And then this is just so we can look at these in October or November and laugh at how off we are. So we'll start in the American League. The American League East, this one is, this one could be 5 teams deep. I mean, realistically, this might be the deepest division, definitely in the American League, maybe all of baseball.
Yeah, I think the West is still pretty strong, other than the Padres being absolutely laughable.
Oh, you're talking NL West, yeah.
Yeah. The AL West, pretty weak, honestly. They have
you have top heavy. I mean,
it's the Rangers and
Houston and Seattle could.
Seattle could. I think they're a bit of a dark horse.
All the Angels have is Mike Trout, and then the A's are about in the same boat as the Padres. They're pretty laughable.
Mm-hmm.
But so you look at the AL East, you have the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays look pretty good on opening day, beating New York 7-2. Yankees have a lot of talent, though, a lot of young talent, guys like Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, Didi Gregorius that they're relying on heavily. Boston, they're top 3 of the rotation. If David Price can get back healthy with him and Chris Sale and Rick Porcello, you have 2 Cy Young winners and then another one looming. Chris Sale could be a Cy Young winner this year, possibly.
So I guess something to just go back to our previous story that I'm just seeing on Twitter. The official press release from CBS says Tony Romo will be doing both Sunday and Thursday games.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's just pretty amazing to me.
I think the NFL has some rule where you're supposed to, if you do the Thursday game, you have to do a Sunday game.
Something like that. I don't know. That's just impressive.
That is impressive.
Back to baseball, because it just popped up on my Twitter.
That's okay. Back to the American League East. This one's just so wide open. Baltimore returns a lot of pieces from a team that made the wild card last year. Toronto, they lost Edwin Encarnacion, but they still have plenty of power. Plus, their pitching rotation looked really good in spring training. That rotation could be good, but it might only be the second or third best in the East. So, real short and simple here. I'm going to take Boston to win the East. What do you think, Sean?
I think if they can stay healthy, it'll be Boston. And if they pick up injuries, then I think the Blue Jays can go and pick it up, because I think they have a really solid team. And if not, then I think it'll be the Yankees.
So which one of the Boston? Okay.
Boston is my actual pick, but if they start to get hurt, I think they are the easiest team to fall down, because they're very top, built to be, as you talked about, if those top 3 guys don't pan out, then they're not going to be a good team.
Yeah. Okay, on to the AL West. This one is a wild one, too. Texas last year. Didn't Texas have the best record in the AL? I think they did.
Probably. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter. They ended up getting beat by Toronto in... Did they get swept? I think they did.
I honestly don't remember.
They've lost to Toronto the last 2 years. That's all that matters. Houston, kind of disappointing last year. They had a lot of talent. They just kind of stumbled out the gate and never got to going. They did finish winning record, but it didn't really matter. Seattle disappointed some people. Many people had them as a wild card favorite last year. Mm-hmm. Felix Hernandez kind of had a setback year, but they have some young talent with Kyle Seager. I mean, Robinson Cano's not young talent, but he's still talented.
Yeah.
So, and they have a guy at first, Dan Vogelback, who could be really good for them this year as well. So that's an interesting division. The A's are going to be bad. I think that's probably a given. And all the Angels have are Mike Trout. And I wonder if at some point they won't deal him and load up their farm system.
Yeah, that's kind of not my hot take. 'Cause I don't think it's a hot take at this point. But I think the Angels are going to be bad, and they are going to get a boatload of picks in June-ish for Mike Trout. They're just going to, send him to some team that either is in bad need of an outfielder to get them over that next step, or a team that maybe just has, three guys that, could get you there. But if you get Mike Trout, he's just going to, bring your chances of winning the World Series just that much higher.
Okay, AL West, I'm taking Houston to win it. Well, what do you like? Is it Houston? Is it Texas? Is it Seattle? Is it Oakland?
I mean, I think it comes down to between Houston and Texas.
Fun fact, Houston is in Texas.
Good. Yes, it's a very fun fact for everyone out there who did not know that Houston is in Texas. I'm going to put my faith in the Astros, and I think they can do it. This may have something to do with my fantasy team having like 3 or 4 Astros.
I think George Springer and Mike Fiers are the only two I have.
I also have George Springer, so I think we're going to be on the same page there, trying to root for the Astros to do some stuff here. But I think the Rangers, just the park that they play in, is so hard to win in. And speaking of parks, the Astros got rid of the mound that they had in
the outfield, the hill,
center field. And that was, it's really interesting to see now. I've seen some pictures of it. Haven't seen it during a game yet, but I think it's going to be the Astros. I think that some of those guys have gotten older and they're a bit more, able to play in the grind of 162 games. But Texas is still good, but they just haven't. They've been in their stage of, okay, well, we could get there, but now it's kind of like, well, now your guys are like 30, 35 years old. Is it past the time that you can make it that far, or is this the, final place that they're going to be able to go?
Yeah, it's tough to say. So we both took Houston to win the AL West. Well, we're being really original. On to the AL Central. Cleveland, they were a rain delay away from maybe winning the World Series last year. They're probably the favorite to win it. But the Central, probably the weakest division in the AL, but still pretty darn good division.
Yeah. Yesterday's game sticks out in my mind, so I'm a little bit clouded. But I'm going to kind of go with you that I think the Cleveland Indians are the top team there. Detroit's good, but I think they're also getting to that same point that the
Rangers are getting to. Detroit's
they're getting old,
banged up,
but I think they can still. I don't think that they're going to be able to get to the top of this league because I think that's how good that Cleveland is. But I think they could sneak in to get that wild card spot. And I think we saw at the end of last year, Justin Verlander kind of came on and he kind of gave that team a bit of a push, but it just wasn't enough. And I think if they can get him to do that for most of the year, then they could get into the wild card. And if things maybe turn out certain ways, they could be at the top of the Central, but I'm still going to take the Indians.
Yeah, I'm taking the Indians too. This one's it's an interesting division as well. Detroit has the pieces. It's just a matter of them staying healthy. The rotation is good with Verlander and Zimmerman and Michael Fulmer, who was Rookie of the Year last year. Minnesota, they've got some pieces that offensively are good, but their rotation outside of Irvin Santana is pedestrian. So I don't know about that one. The Royals, I don't want to talk about it. Who knows what it's going to be like for them this year. I'm still optimistic in saying 85 wins. I think the Royals finished third in the AL Central.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And, I mean, this team, this is the last year.
Yeah.
For at least this core group of guys, because I don't think we're going to be able to get
I think maybe Moustakas will stay, but I don't think Hosmer will stay. And we don't want Escobar to stay. And Kane, you could probably get Kane pretty cheap.
Yeah.
As old as he's getting and the injuries he's had. But, yeah, this core group players, this is it for them. The White Sox, they're going to be pretty bad this year, I think. They have pieces. They have prospects all over the place. Yoan Moncada at second, one of the best prospects in the league. They'll have a right-handed pitcher come up at some point named Lucas Giolito, who's on my fantasy team. It'd be awesome if he could turn into a gem. Also, Reynaldo Lopez, another top pitcher, and Michael Kopech, another one. And Carlos Rodon, he's currently in their rotation, injured right now, but he showed signs of promise this past year, so maybe he can get things kinked out and be productive for the White Sox. So things will be bright for the White Sox in the future, but probably not this year. So, Sean, we'll shift to the NL, the National League. Yesterday, looking at the East, the Mets looks really good. Noah Syndergaard pitched 5-6 innings, really good. Did have a blister on his middle finger and had to come out. They look pretty good yesterday. Are they a team that could maybe dethrone Washington in the East? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Nationals, Mets, and maybe Marlins can sneak up in there, but I think this is predominantly a two-horse race for the East. I think the Nationals have been praised as this team that just have one of the best rotations in the league. They have Bryce Harper, but they haven't gotten past the first round of the playoffs. So, and time's gonna come where someone's gonna end up paying a boatload, a island load of money, a trailer full of money for Bryce Harper.
Like literally a boatload of money, probably.
Yeah, like they're gonna give him.
I think he's a free agent not after this year, but after next year.
Yeah, he's gonna sign some.
I think like the 2019 free agent class is. I can look that up. It's like Harper, Kershaw, Bumgarner. I mean, I saw this a couple years ago, so I don't know how many of these guys have signed extensions. But let me just pull this up. The 2019 free agency class from Spot Track, and they're normally pretty up to date. Joe Mauer, no one really cares. This goes by 2018 salary. Do you know Joe Mauer is making $23 million in 2018?
That's good for him. I don't think
that is.
I don't think the Twins are gonna like that deal.
Or maybe it's 2018. I think it's this year.
Oh, that is not good.
Because I remember thinking at one point that the what might help the Royals in the Hosmer hunt is that it's going to be so loaded. Arrieta's a free agent. Curtis Granderson, Marco Estrada, Eric Hosmer, obviously, Todd Frazier, Carlos Gonzalez, Lorenzo Cain, we knew that. Jay Bruce again. I'm trying to think of when Bryce Harper becomes a free, because I know it's got to be soon. Because he didn't just sign a big deal a couple years ago, did he? I don't remember. Bryce Harper, contract details and salaries and earnings. It's a lot. We know that much. His contract is up at the end of next year. He's up through 2018. You want to guess how much Bryce Harper made this year?
Since I don't know the details, I'm just going to throw out $27 million.
Half that.
Oh.
13 million.
Okay.
Joe Mauer is making 23, and Bryce Harper made 13.
Well, that makes sense because Harper hasn't been in the league.
But Harper's also a two-time NL MVP, one time,
something like that. Yeah. Well, teams don't go and give you a new contract in the middle of your contract because if you can get somebody for half of what they're going to make, then why not? We
kind of detracted a little bit there, but look at the rest of the East. Miami, might be an emotional year for them coming off the loss. Jose Fernandez, Giancarlo Stanton's got to stay healthy if they're going to be a part. I'm not sold on their pitching rotation. Philadelphia, they've got some good prospects with J.P. Crawford, and the rotation isn't awful. Atlanta's another team. They got some guys I'd look, keep an eye on. Dansby Swanson, the shortstop, could be a Rookie of the Year candidate. They added Julio Teheran, R.A. Dickey, and Bartolo Colon to their starting lineup. So if this team was a 2008 version of them, it'd be a really good team. But it's not. It's 2017. So with that being said, I'm taking Washington to win the East. I think you're probably in the same boat, or you going the Mets?
Yeah, I'm gonna take them. But those two teams have probably the best rotations in the NL. I'm just gonna, I think they have the two best in the National League. Other than, the Cubs really don't wow me, but they do have a very good top end, and then it's just go out there and hopefully we can win some games.
Yeah, moving on to the NL West now. This one, I think the top four of the NL West could go any which way. You have the Dodgers, who are probably the favorite with Clayton Kershaw on the mound. I was watching a little bit of the game yesterday and listening about it. Clayton Kershaw makes more money in 1 year than the entire San Diego Padres lineup made.
Yeah.
$28 million against $33 million.
That's not good at all. Well,
that Clayton Kershaw is making $33 million, or the Padres are.
The Padres are only making 28. Oh God, they're in a bad place right now.
Yeah, that team, they're going to be the next ones to move out.
Well,
I don't want to project that, but maybe the West, the Dodgers. I think Corey Seager could be MVP this year. I'm not saying he will, but I think he could be. The Giants, I don't know about the Giants this year. It's an odd year, so
last year was an even year, and they didn't get it.
But
that was just a coincidence. But I think they always have the chance because of how they have their team set up.
And Bruce Bochy is maybe the best manager in baseball.
One of the best,
Yeah, but their bullpen is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their bullpen is worse than the Royals was yesterday. Arizona's got the pieces with Greinke, and I think Shelby Miller's going to have a bounce back year. Goldschmidt and A.J. Pollock could both be MVP caliber candidates. Chris Owings is playing well at shortstop. A team I really like out of the West, Sean, you know who that is. I actually just bought tickets to go watch them play later in August. Colorado Rockies. I think the Rockies, I wouldn't be surprised if they surprise people and make the playoffs. The problem with Colorado and playing in Denver is that ballpark and where it's at, it's not a pitcher-friendly park at all. That could cause them some problems. If you look at the power they have in their lineup with Nolan Arenado, another MVP candidate. Trevor Story could be an MVP candidate. David Dahl. They have a solid guy like DJ LeMahieu who can get on base. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies made the wild card or maybe even won the NL at all, would you?
No, not at all. I think the biggest thing for them is seeing if they can win away from their park, because I think while they're at home, they can do enough to be able to win, but being able to, change what you do in other teams' parks is going to be huge, because if you don't have a good, pitching staff, then you're not going to be able to win games, and it's hard to be able to get guys to go there because I'm going to go there and my ERA is going to be 5. I don't really want to do that because then that could, if I'm just going there for a 1 to 2 year deal, all of my stats are going to be bad, even if we may win a bunch of games, just because I may be used to giving up 3 or 4, runs per, let's say, 10 games. It's a really bad, stat anyway. But there, it'd be like, oh, well, now it's like 6 or 7 because, if I have one bad pitch, out of the park.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I'm taking the Dodgers to win the AL or the NL West. What are you thinking?
I'm also going to take the Dodgers. This is the one thing for, baseball kind of has this, like these times where it's the same, teams that are just going to go out and, win, because it's so hard to be able to build up. And if you're bad, you're going to be bad for a while. And we're seeing that with the Padres. Kansas City was bad forever.
Yeah.
And, so I think it's going to be the Dodgers because their payroll is massive. The Giants, I think they'll be able to stick close just because they're the Giants. And other than that, I don't trust Arizona, and Colorado could surprise people, but I'm going to have to, watch them throughout the year.
Yeah, I think San Francisco finishes 4th in the NL this year. I think Arizona gets 2nd, and I think Colorado gets 3rd. But I could be totally wrong, so I guess we'll see. One last division to hit, the NL Central. This one's a cakewalk, right? Cubs are going to win it, right?
They're in the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I don't think Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got, with Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole's finally come around to be a solid pitcher. They had a kid that came up last year, Tyler Glasnow, who's pretty darn good too. But I've never been a big fan of Andrew McCutchen or that sold on Andrew McCutchen. So I think the Cubs still have too much there. I'm gonna take the Cubs to win the NL Central. What do you think, Sean?
I think the Cubs are gonna do it, but I'm gonna take the Cardinals. Just because I think they have a good team, and I think the Cubs are going to have a bit of a, after, they win the World Series, they're going to have a bit of a, downtime just because, like, oh, hey, we're going to win, and then they're going to start to lose, and they're going to be like, we're supposed to be the best team in the league. What's happening? And so I think these two teams are still going to be in the hunt for October, but I think the Cardinals are going to come out on top.
So, quick rundown of our division champions. I have in the AL East, we both have Boston. AL West, we both have Houston. AL Central, we both have Cleveland. We went together on the AL. NL East, we both have Washington. NL West, we both have Los Angeles. NL Central, I have the Cubs, you have the Cardinals. So, we're not very far apart at all. Let's move on real quickly to the wild cards. Who's the top wild card team out of the AL, do you think?
I think it's going to be probably... I mean, it's really hard. There are about 7 teams I can see that could get into it.
I think anyone but the A's and maybe the White Sox. And I'm being serious. I think, anybody.
I mean, I think the Rangers are going to be in the wild card just because they're good enough. And maybe Toronto. I mean, it's pretty much like the same teams going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the way those franchises are set up, they're good. And I could see Kansas City, but they're going to have to start to impress me in the first month, and they can't have that, mid-season dip
that they're used to having. Yeah,
years.
I'm going to sticker out there and say it. I'm going to take Toronto, Texas as my wild cards. I think they're the top of the AL is so good, and I don't think Kansas City's got enough. Then that was really Detroit. I kind of contemplate throwing in there. Same with Seattle, but I don't think they have enough. So I think we'll see another Toronto-Texas matchup in the playoffs. So you have Texas, and are you going Toronto for the other AL wild card?
Yeah, just for now, and this could change in July whenever teams are like, oh well, our team's bad, and we can go get these picks for the future. Yeah. And that's kind of when it all comes together because, I'm pretty sure it was Toronto 2 years ago when they went out and got
Tulowitzki and David Price.
And they made their big push to go out and win the championship.
Well, and the Royals did the same thing with Cueto and Ben Zobrist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the A's did that with, was it John Lester and Jason Hamill? They went after, I don't know how many years ago, but... okay, on to the NL now. You didn't have the Cubs winning the NL Central. Do the Cubs get in the playoffs as a wild card?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're too good. And then it really comes down, in my mind, between the Giants and the Mets for who gets into that last wild card spot. I'm going to take the Mets because I think they have a very good starting rotation. I think they have to get some offense together, and then that'll work. And honestly, it's just the Giants are the Giants, so they could get in, but they don't do anything to come out and say, hey, we're good. They just are good.
I'm going to go a little unconventional here. I'm going to take the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know why I like them this year, but Greinke didn't look terrible on opening day other than giving up a home run to Madison Bumgarner. Pollock and Goldschmidt looked pretty good. I'm just feeling it. The Diamondbacks are going to get in. They were kind of disappointing last year. They bounced back this year. Diamondbacks and the Mets. Give me the Mets as well. I think their rotation will carry them. Now let's move real quickly to our awards. Give me your Cy Young winners out of both the AL and the NL.
I'm going to go Syndergaard for the NL.
That's where I was going to. I think he's going to have a lights out. I was torn between Syndergaard and Bumgarner, but then I thought, I don't know, Bumgarner, I don't think they're going to finish that high. And like we talked about yesterday, his stats don't normally super impress you.
No, he comes on in the postseason, though, and that's what he's known for.
I can see Kershaw as well.
Kershaw is always a big name. As long as he doesn't get injured. He was out last year for, 2 months?
Something like that.
And the AL, I guess Kluber.
That's where I went to.
Prototypical name. Other than that, there could be some other, guys that step up. I
think Danny Duffy could be a potential AL.
I think he could if he kind of picks up some.
ESPN
wins.
did a poll the other day of their 35. I think it was 35 13 voted Chris Sale, 7 Corey Kluber, 7 Aaron Sanchez, 2 Yu Darvish, 2 Chris Archer, 1 Masahiro Tanaka, 1 Andrew Miller, 1 Francisco Liriana, and 1 King Felix. So Sale's a very popular choice. I've never been a fan of Chris Sale. Going back to his White Sox days, I always thought the guy's kind of a little bit of a head case. So I'm not sold on Sale. So I'm taking Corey Kluber as well. So we see the same on the Cy Youngs. Rookie of the Year, you had a chance to look at that and see who you want. You better get to that, Sean.
You can't make me, Trevor.
I sure can. I'll just go ahead and jump out and say who I like for AL Rookie of the Year. It's Andrew Benintendi. He's an outfielder for Boston. I think he played college ball at Arkansas. In that outfit out there, you have Betts, Benintendi, and Jackie Bradley Jr., the Killer Bees. They expect big things out of him at Fenway Park this year. So I'm going to go Andrew Benintendi on that one. There's some other guys I wouldn't be surprised with. Jarrell Cotton. He's a pitcher for the A's. That kid's 23, 24 years old. He's got some experience. He could potentially maybe be AL Rookie of the Year. I don't know if Raul Mondesi qualifies or not. Does he? I don't think he does.
Nah, because he was with the team for a bunch of last year.
Aaron Judge from the Yankees, another guy that if he can get his stuff under control, he struggled last year when he was called up. Lucas Giolito from the White Sox, talking about him earlier, if he gets called up at the right time, maybe him. Same with Yoan Moncada. Moncada going to start off the season in the minors, but, Chris Bryant also started off his season in the minors and ended up, winning Rookie of the Year. So one of those guys will probably win it. Any ideas? Any guesses?
We're going to go with Andrew Benintendi.
I feel like you're just copying me.
I'm not I actually went and found a list, and they all voted for him. I was like,
Okay, so moving on to the NL now. There's a bunch of guys there that I think have a chance. Pittsburgh's got a couple guys with Tyler Glasnow at the plate, or at the mound, I guess I should say, and Josh Bell at first base. San Diego might be really bad this year, but they do have 2 outfielders that are really, really good with Manuel Margot and Hunter Renfroe. Those guys, this could be kind of a telling year for San Diego, the same way it was for the Royals back in the day when they were so bad, where, yeah, they sucked, but you got to see guys like Gordon and Hosmer and Moustakas, and maybe it pays off down in the future. But the guy I really like out of the NL is Dansby Swanson, the shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I cut him, and I regret it and wish I wouldn't have. But I think he's going to have a really good year on a really bad team, so it'll stick out. So I'm going to take Dansby Swanson as my Rookie of the Year, and judging by the look Sean just gave me, I feel like he is too.
I was, but instead we're going to take Ahmed Rosario.
From the Mets. Yep. First baseman?
I think second baseman.
And he's not starting, but he could.
Yeah, that's pretty much the thing, because starting there they have Asdrubal Carrera, but I think he could be the type of guy that comes in and he's that good. One thing that he's been compared to is Carlos Correa or Francisco Lindor. I think he has that type of impact on a team, but he just kind of has to earn his spot.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. AL MVP. Who do you like, Sean?
Everyone. I like Ned Yost
for American League. For American League MVP.
Obviously. Okay, I think this one's really hard.
This one's
because
really hard.
there are guys on a bunch of teams who can always go out and win. Trout's always a good name to throw out there, but I think his team's awful, so he won't be able to do it. I'm gonna go Mookie Betts for Boston. Wow, Trevor, we think alike. It's okay.
You went Mookie Betts, and I was gonna go Mookie Betts, but we can't have the same for each and every one of them.
Well, we can.
No, we can't. So I'm going to switch it up. This is a guy I was kind of torn between one of 3 guys. I struggle to vote for Trout when your team still fishes below 500. So I was torn between Betts, Carlos Correa, and Francisco Lindor. I'm going to go Carlos Correa. After we originally planned Mookie Betts, I'm going to go Carlos Correa. The kid has a lot of talent. I think Houston might be the best team in the American League this year. So give me Carlos Correa, the shortstop for the Astros, to be your American League MVP. Moving on to the National League, Sean. The 2017 National League MVP is going to be who?
I think there are again, a few guys you can talk about. I think there are two guys on the Cubs you can talk about with Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant. Bryce Harper's always going to be in that if he stays healthy. And one name that I think you might pick, who's a bit of a sleeper, Nolan Arenado. He's a bit of a sleeper pick. I think I'm going to go with Bryce Harper. I think he's going to, lead his team, and I think the Cubs just have a bit of a down year, so those guys don't end up, actually coming out on top. But if Colorado ends up doing as, good as you think they can, then maybe Arenado sneaks in there and grabs MVP.
You know what? I'm going to say it doesn't even matter. Nolan Arenado's the league MVP either way. I think he'll have that kind of year. He was second voting last year, I believe, or third maybe. So give me Nolan Arenado from the Rockies, your third baseman. I think Corey Seager's another one that could sneak up in there as your league MVP. So
I think if they have a okay year, well, if they finish with 100 wins, 95 wins, then he could go out and win it.
So I'm going to take Nolan Arenado. So now, Sean, we're on to the playoffs. AL wildcard, we both have Toronto and Texas. Who wins that one and advances to the ALDS?
I think Toronto, because they just have their, I just think that, that we've seen the past 2 years that they have Texas's number, and I don't think that's going to change.
I went the opposite route on this. I'm going to take Texas over Toronto. I think they can finally get over that hump and beat Toronto. So on to the NL wild card. I had Arizona and the Mets. You have the Cubs and the Mets. Who wins the rematch of the 2015 NLCS?
I think I'm still going to go with the Cubs. I think they have the team to be able to put it all together. And, the Mets, I hope that their starting rotation can make it that entire time. But, there's a part of me that says that they're not going to. And even if they have, they still have to have those top three guys. And if it comes down to a one game, who's going to go on, I think it's the Cubs.
Okay, so one thing we did not do in our picking is seed the top three from each top three. We got to do the NLDS. So for the AL, we each have Boston, Houston, Cleveland. I think Cleveland's the 1, Houston's the 2, Boston's the 3. What do you think?
I think Boston will be the 2 because even though that they do play in the hardest league, I think they'll come out on top of that. And I think Cleveland, because they play in the AL Central, that they're going to be able to pick up wins on the Twins, White Sox, and possibly even the Tigers and the good old Kansas City Royals. So
you have Cleveland. You have Cleveland, Boston, Houston.
Yes.
Okay, so that would give you Cleveland against Toronto and Boston against Houston. That would give me. I had Houston, Cleveland. I had Cleveland, Houston, Boston. So that'd give me Cleveland, Texas, and Houston, Boston. So who do you see winning your matchups with Toronto, Cleveland, and Houston, Boston? It's tough, I know.
I think Cleveland, they didn't do anything to make me doubt them, and they helped their cause even by going and signing Edwin Encarnacion. So I think they're going to be set to not quite have the fast track to the World Series, but I think they're going to easily be able to get to the ALCS. And if Boston is able to stay healthy, I think they'll be able to get to the ALCS.
So you have Cleveland over Toronto and Boston over Houston. I think Cleveland, I think they can get past Texas if that's who they end up meeting. But I'm going to go Houston over Boston. I don't know why. There's something I like about the Astros this year. So I'm going to take them in that one. So, Sean, same, format for the NL. You had the Nationals, Dodgers, and Cardinals. I had the Cubs, Nationals, Dodgers. I'm going to say the Cubs are the top seed. I'm going to say Cubs, Nats, Dodgers. What do you think?
I think it's going to go Dodgers, Nationals, Cardinals.
That's pretty straightforward. So that would give you the Dodgers and the Mets. I believe you have the Dodgers, Cubs, and then Cardinals, Nationals in your NLDS. I have Cubs, Mets, and Dodgers, Nationals. So what do you think? Who gets onto the NLCS?
I think the Cardinals are going to dash the dreams of the Washington Nationals because that's just what happens. Yeah. And then I think the Cubs are going to be able to pull it through because I think they have that core that's still able to go out and win in the postseason. And, yeah, I'm going to take the Cardinals.
That's exactly not what I want to see is a Cardinals-Cubs in LCS. I don't even have the Cubs in the play or the Cardinals in the playoffs. Excuse me. I'm going to take the Cubs over the Mets. I think they're just too much for the Mets. And I think the Nationals do get to the NLCS. I'm going to take the Nationals over the Dodgers. They probably should have won it last year. So setting it up for the ALCS, I have Cleveland-Houston. Sean has Cleveland-Boston. In the NLCS, Sean has St. Louis-Chicago. That makes me want to vomit. And I have Chicago-Washington. Sean, who's going to the World Series out of the ALCS, according to you?
This is hard. I think I'm going to take the Cubs just to win.
ALCS?
Oh, I thought you said NL. Oh, God. This is actually harder because I was more clear with who was going to go in the NL. AL, I think it could go either way. If the Boston rotation is up to snuff, then I think they can win. But because we're in April, that's really hard to do. I think I'm going to take Boston in this, hopefully. I don't know. I'm just going to say Boston and then hand it over to you.
I'm going to take Cleveland over Houston. I want to go Houston so bad, but this Cleveland team might just be a team of destiny this year, and they're one of the best teams the American League's seen in a long time. This team is like the 2015 Royals, but better. So I don't see any way they don't win the AL. So you have the Red Sox win the AL. I have the Indians. Well, the National League, Sean, you've kind of a, not necessarily the expert pick of
not at all.
Cubs, Cardinals, yeah.
I think it's going to be the Cubs who come out and win, and that'll match up for me, the Red Sox and the Cubs, and I think that has another interesting storyline behind it, but we'll get your pick first.
The Washington Nationals will get to the World Series this year. Mark it down.
I have heard that for 4 years now.
Yeah, and it's going to happen this year. They're going to get there.
Well, I mean, I hope so, but I've had my dreams dashed for years.
We're going to see an Indians-Nationals World Series this year. I think Washington's pitching with Scherzer. That's a guy we didn't even talk about in the Cy Young race. Gio Gonzalez is pretty good. Strasburg. Yeah, that team's good. They obviously have Bryce Harper. Anthony Rendon at third base is pretty solid. Trey Turner is no slouch. That's a good team. Nationals are finally going to get over the hump and get the World Series this year. So you have Red Sox Cubs. And I have Indians Nationals. That would be different. But Red Sox Cubs, what do you see? I
think the Red Sox are going to get quote-unquote vengeance because Theo Epstein left them, and
good point.
They have that, theme behind it. I don't think it actually has an impact on the game, but it's going to be a, story that'll be talked about. Like, well, will the Red Sox be able to beat their old GM? Like, does it matter? No. But I think it's probably going to go 6 games, possibly 7, and then I think the Red Sox are going to win it.
I'm going to go Cleveland over Washington in 6. I think Cleveland last year, they were so close to getting there and they couldn't. Washington will be happy to get there, and they'll probably turn around in 2018 if that's the way it works. But I think the Indians are the favorite this year. A lot of people picking the Red Sox. Some people picking the Blue Jays. Obviously, a lot of people are going to pick the Cubs. But give me the Indians to win it all. They're just built like a team that's going to win it all. Where is the weakness on that team? Find me the weakness in Cleveland.
Maybe the bullpen minus Andrew Miller.
Cody Allen's still not bad.
Cody Allen. So I think they just have to bridge the gap to the 7th inning, and then they'll do
So you're telling me the same thing Royals had to do a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Get to the 8th inning, and you're good.
I mean, it's still
but you look
a
at
weakness.
But look at the rotation Cleveland has, though.
Yeah.
You're telling me that Kluber, Carrasco, Salazar, those guys couldn't get you 6 innings, have a bridge guy get you another inning?
Maybe.
And then you get to Allen and Miller? I think they're good. Where's the weakness in their lineup? Kipnis can be kind of hurt sometimes. Same with Brantley. Jon Gomes, I don't know. But, I mean, Lindor is amazing. Naquin's coming too. Yeah, and when Encarnacion they added. Yeah, this is Cleveland's year, and we're living in it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This is why we all
I can see
predict it.
Cavs win the NBA Finals. Indians win the World Series. Browns win 6 games. It'll be a great year in Cleveland.
If they win 6 games, they might throw an actual
They might party.
parade.
Hugh Jackson might be coach of the year.
Probably. I don't know.
But so there you have it. Our NL. We'll just run through the awards real quick and the CSs. AL MVP, I have Carlos Correa. Sean has Mookie Betts. AL Cy Young, we both have Corey Kluber. Rookie of the Year, we both have outfielder Andrew Benintendi from the Red Sox. And the ALCS, I have Cleveland over Houston. Sean has Boston over Cleveland. NL Cy Young, both have Noah Syndergaard. MVP, he has Bryce Harper. I have Nolan Arenado. Rookie of the Year, he has Ahmed Rosario, the second base shortstop for the Mets. And I have Dansby Swanson, the shortstop for the Braves. NLCS, Sean has the Cubs over the Cardinals. That sounds disgusting. And I have the Nationals over the Cubs. So going on to the World Series, give me the Indians over the Nationals. And Sean has the Red Sox over the Cubs. That sounds also disgusting. Well, Sean managed to talk better part of 40 minutes about baseball. I'm excited. Baseball season, 161 games to go. Royals are going to fish 161-1.
Boy, if that happens, that'll be this will be one hell of a season if that happens.
85-77.
I think that's close to what the best is they can do. I'm gonna go 83-81.
Then we play 160.
You're right.
So 83 and 79.
Yeah, something like that. My math is
yes,
not right today,
I think
guys.
that's what Jason Stark had him as. So
that sounds about right.
That sounds about right. Somewhere between 81 and 87.
Yeah, I think the the predictors that have them at 74 wins also could be true, just because the way this team works doesn't.
They said that when they won before they won the World Series.
Correct,
too, so.
But this team doesn't directly remind me of the teams that can go out and win the World Series, but who knows? I could be surprised, and we could be having another parade down in Kansas City.
Let's hope so. That'll pretty much do it for episode 6 of Trevor and Sean's Sports Podcast. Be sure to check back in here next Monday. I believe we'll shoot for Monday to talk whatever we want to talk about. What are we going to talk about next week? NFL draft, maybe.
Maybe a big story will come by. I don't know.
Yeah, because you or I, neither one can probably talk enough about the Masters for it to be.
We could talk about
show.
who
won,
wins,
but it won't be
that,
quality. Because I won't watch other than maybe the last.
That's true.
5 minutes of it.
Maybe I'll watch a NASCAR.
There you go. They're in Texas on Sunday.
Ooh.
So
sounds intriguing.
All right. Thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll be back here next Monday for Sean Nino. I'm Trevor Mader.